Welcome back to the Driven Leadership Podcast. Another exciting episode this week with Eric McGrath and Austin Haydell.
Woo!
How's everybody feeling?
Apparently, Austin's having way too much fun with this intro music.
We're actually hearing it live now for the first time, so it's a little bit of an exciting update. Well, today we got the boys at the virtual roundtable, and we're going through Reddit reaction stories. These are always just really fun and interesting, especially throwing these at y'all who have no idea what's coming or what we're going to talk about.
We have no idea what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, y'all have no idea.
That's the way this works. Connor just says show up, and then we're supposed to respond intelligently to whatever comes out.
What I love is that Reddit almost feels like it's fake.
There's definitely a few that feel a little fishy for sure.
But I don't think they are fake. I think they are real, and that in itself is concerning for everyone out there.
These are real situations, yeah.
Yeah, very, very off-putting.
Well, I want to jump into this first one that's really interesting. It's not one of the more serious ones, but it's submitted. Again, we're looking at these submissions on the leadership subreddit. This one is by Mr. Covey _1. So Stephen R. Covey submitted a submission here on
I think
Reddit.
it's really him. Is that really him?
No, absolutely not. Because the question is the ability to talk nonstop a key to leadership? So they go on to elaborate that based on my personal observations, it seems that people in high-level positions have the ability to talk nonstop about anything. They can take a boring topic or a simple answer and suddenly create a long monologue. So they go on to explain their experience. But they say the reason I bring this up is because I've been studying and implementing leadership abilities, and I found that success leading / mentoring colleagues. However, they're a shy person, so they tend to listen and let others speak. If someone asks me a question, I give a succinct answer. I'm afraid that if I can't learn to deliver long stories or talk about nothing, then I won't be able to move up the corporate ladder.
Well, can we start by saying this is pretty obvious and transparent that this is a passive-aggressive question targeted at Austin and I because we talk too much.
That's
I completely
rude.
See through what you're doing, Connor.
Don't put me in that boat. Don't put me in that boat.
Don't put you in that boat. You turned your headphones on earlier and you had a 10-minute monologue about why you listen to classical music. Nobody asked you. You just said, you did ask? I wasn't listening.
He did ask. You weren't listening.
Hurtful,
That's
Connor.
your fault.
Well, see, I have the opposite problem. I just don't listen. But this guy's talking about being able to talk nonstop. Have you ever observed this? Have you ever put these things together? Is this accurate? What do y'all think about this one?
I have thoughts, but Austin, you want to jump in? You look like you got something there.
Well, I don't necessarily have thoughts direct at this because I'm going to take the road of talking about it a lot and not be succinct. And that is, I really think behind the answer is this idea that introverts, and I guess the conversation in my head comes up a lot, is introverts versus extroverts in leadership specifically. Can they be effective in the same way?
Introverts be effective? Yeah.
Can introverts be effective in leadership because they're not gregarious or they're not great speakers or they're not very outspoken? Can they be effective and can they be successful in leadership? And I think that's kind of the underlying thing that I hear is if I don't have the gift of the gab and I don't have the ability to talk well, or I don't see value in that because of my personality type, will I be limited? And so the answer succinctly is no, in my mind.
What are your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, well, that's a whole different question that Austin just brought up. And I think you say no. I think it depends based on how you frame that, right? So if I'm in a company that needs a really outspoken, gregarious leader, I'm either pulling somebody in as my number two that can carry that weight, or I am needing that skill one way or another. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of companies that don't. There's amazing introverted leaders and they crush it. I guess when you were saying that to me, I went to the place of why is the ability to speak an issue? Okay, so if it is just introverted versus extroverted, and that sits well, and we talked a little bit about that, but I think a lot of times people don't voice their opinion from a lack of confidence, a lack of even awareness of the environment. Like they lack everything from emotional intelligence to just situational awareness to be able to go, okay, what is needed here? What's needed to be said? How do I step into it? I think a lot of times leaders that just ramble nonstop, and I think I'm one of them, by the way. I think leaders that ramble nonstop a lot of times hurt the situation because they don't leave a space for somebody else to step into. Yeah. They can shut down dialogue. They can make it about them instead of about, kind of where the group needs to go, and they may be poor at bringing the group along. So I think like anything, there's strengths and weaknesses to this, but I would ask the question of, if I'm in that spot, know your culture. Are all the leaders in here outspoken, gregarious, and can speak on anything? If that's the case within your culture, that may be needed to be promoted because the expectation within the culture may be you have to have this. Is it really needed to lead a team? In most cases, I'd say no as well. Yeah. But then if you're not doing it, why aren't you doing it? And is it connected to confidence, self-assuredness, all those things? And that's something to work on to be a better leader.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely the yin and yang of, you can't just be talking all the time, because a good leader also listens really well. So it's finding the...
No. Bad
what?
timing.
Oh my God.
That was great. So I think to just jump in here.
I can't believe it took me so long. That really upsets me.
Yeah, that was sad how long that took you, to be honest.
I didn't hear what you said either, so I was like, wait, what? Did he think Austin said something? Jesus.
Got him. No, I think it's interesting too. I wonder, and I would love to talk to this person and ask what their experience has been with leaders who ramble, because it sounds like very back-ended, like maybe he was overran and he didn't have a voice heard. And so now he's in a position of leadership, or he wants to or aspires to be in a position of leadership, and he doesn't want to do that. And so what was that response? His behavior is a response to something. So what was that something that causes it? Because,
well, I don't think it's a negative response, because he says, there's some more context where he says, I've noticed in my own corporate experiences that high-level managers and CEOs tend to go 10 to 20 minutes on a regular basis. They spin the yes or no questions into long-winded responses. And he says, like, it's impressive. He said, I'm not saying they talk over people or they take all the air out of the room. It's just seeing that they're more impressed by the ability to take questions and spin it. But then to me, that's like, okay, well, if you're in a high-level position, there are very rarely yes or no questions, like purely just yes, no, yes, no. Like, there's more context and depth behind a lot of the stuff at that higher level. So you may not just see that from your perspective, and that's why it's like, well, why aren't they just saying yes or no, keeping it short? So a lot of times, like, that would create more confusion if you just kept answers and really short and didn't kind of explain and bring people along, because good leaders also do that as well.
Well, I think there's it was a quote that I read, and I used to have this on by my bedside table, and it was one of those things where it's like it's harder to tell a short story than it is to tell a long one. And so it may also be, and I would say I took this journey, or am taking this journey, and I really need to work on this actively. I wrote this down, but just reminding myself that, the most interesting people or the most interested in others is a really great way to look at it. And a lot of times leaders want to, and I think, Eric, you kind of pointed at this, either they don't speak because they, confidence or all those things. But in the same world, some leaders think that they have to do that in order to be seen as intelligent, or to be followed, or to be heard, or to be seen. And so I think there's a level of which understanding that as a leader too, to say, hey, I don't have to do this. I don't have to have these long-winded responses. I can be succinct. I can be confidently curious and ask questions, and my value's not compromised because I'm not this long-winded answer as well. So to your point, Connor, you said yin and yang. I think it's perfectly balanced. Wherever you land on that spectrum, it is the self-awareness to understand what's needed in the situation. How do you approach the situation with self-awareness, and also what's needed to get to where you want to go. Sometimes it's really helpful to have long-winded conversations that seem invaluable or they seem like a waste of time, but they really get to a better solutional point, or they get to a better understanding between the two parties. Whereas sometimes succinctness does the same thing. And so there's just so many nuances here that Stephen Covey didn't really give us insight into.
Mr.
It was
Covey.
a long-winded answer.
Yeah, it was very succinct, Austin. Thank you for that.
I can't stand either one of you.
I'm going to cut that part out.
There's no cutting.
I'll splice another time where you say, you guys are the best.
Yeah. Let's do that.
You guys are the best.
If you have that on recording, you got it. That was perfect. I was like, I'm not sure where you're going to pull that from, but now we got it.
You're welcome.
We'll keep the train moving here. This is submitted by Jamie Weller. They say, new to leadership, what's one thing you wish you knew? So they explain a little bit. They're going into one of their first leadership roles as a supervisor, one additional level of responsibility more than the rest of the team. However, still under my direct manager, and then the higher ups above that. That is all to say that I'm not top dog, but I'm now in a sort of leadership supervisory role. I wouldn't say sort of. I say you are definitely in a leadership supervisory role. What is one bit of advice you wished you'd been given? A book you recommend to read, YouTube video, online course, all the stuff, anything. So starting out as a leader, what's one piece of advice or your just go-to advice whenever you approach new leaders or talk to new leaders?
Listen more than you talk. I mean, I know that one's used all the time, but for a new manager, I see a lot of managers that are new and they go in and they think they're supposed to have all the answers. They're supposed to have all the right ideas. They're supposed to be whatever, however they picture that.
Yeah.
And the reality is you're not there yet. You're learning. Everybody knows you're learning. So own that, come in, listen, ask questions, get curious. And that's of everyone. And even if you're coming out of the position, like I know how to do this role and now I'm managing that role, ask why people are doing things where they are. I think a lot of times people think leadership is about getting people to do things or management. And people do things, but it's really about understanding how people think and then helping them think more in alignment with what we need to have happen. And the more we get into helping them think, you can't know what they're thinking unless you ask questions. So ask a lot of questions, listen intently, be curious, be humble and hungry, and kind of live in that space. And everybody that does that, even if they're a bad manager, they usually do pretty okay. Because it also endears people to you because you're not coming in as the boss. You're coming in as somebody that's there to serve them, to help them, to even inspire them to be better because you care so much and you're so curious and you want to remove the obstacles and make them,
And you can set
flourish.
that from day one, like laying that foundation as who you are defining yourself to be as a leader. And we've talked about this before in terms of like asking questions where I've seen new leaders be put into managerial roles and there's this unspoken expectation that now they just have to execute on their own. Like they're flying solo. Like I've been given this responsibility. It's do or die. Let me get in there and figure it out. But every single time I've come across that, I try to nip it in the bud as soon as possible, where it's like, as their direct supervisor, where it's like, look, my role is to answer the questions you have. Your role is to ask the questions about the things that you don't know. And so that's always such a key thing for new leaders is, you're not supposed to be doing it on your own.
I like it.
Yeah. Quote, because she asked for that. Be all you are, where you are. Be present. in the moment. YouTube video, How Great Leaders Inspire Action by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Book recommendation, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Whoa.
No, and I say those things succinctly as a joke to the last one, but also the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team for me is a very simple book. It's a fable book. Patrick Lencioni does a great job at those, but what it does is it reminds new leaders the importance of utilizing a team and having a team. And so trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results, and how those things work together in a function. Like, you can't do it alone. So to your point, Connor, like the silo effect gets wiped away when you understand that trust is foundational. I need these people. I'm not this warrior leading the charge into war. I am I'm not in the front necessarily always, but I'm behind them. We're working together. I'm with you in this journey, and we need each other to make this thing happen. And I think that's where a lot of people get off.
So I want to recommend a book. It's called The Making of a Manager by Julie Zhu, Z-H-U-O.
Huh.
It was written by this woman that was part of building Facebook. It was part of Facebook for a long time, and it's for new managers. But I thought it was like a really good, well-written roadmap for how to step in, and gave a whole lot of not just basics, but nuance to it, and kind of the emotional side as well of how you're dealing with it and how to work through things.
Nice.
It's good.
Yeah, I love that point you were making, Austin, because when I started out as a new leader, I had people around me who encouraged questions, and they just doing that makes you feel so supported. And it made me feel like I was a superhuman leader, because I knew I had this other team of established and respected leaders behind me, advising me and helping me and, holding me accountable to things. And it just made me so much more confident to execute and to even make my own decisions, because I knew that I would very quickly realize if I had messed up or not, but they were going to help me along that way. So the confidence it went way up for me, at least, knowing that I had a team of people around me and behind me that I could lean on as a leader. And it wasn't like on my own.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of people think of leadership as accountability, right? They think, I'm to Eric's point, like, I got to get them to do things. I've got to get them to do it well. I've got to fix this, and I'm being hired in this role to do something different. And the way we do that a lot of times is autocratic leadership. We come in and people assume, especially early on, that they have to come autocratically to the table and dictate their way through, instead of understanding that it is, and this isn't fluffy. I think a lot of times I've talked to new managers, or even kind of the mid position of management, and they're like, well, that's just a fluffy response. It's like, no, caring about people and really getting to the bottom of it is how you create accountability at the highest level. Because if not, they're just listening to you, and that's not what we want. We're not here to create yes people or just followers. We're here to create a team of people, a cohesive team that can execute regardless of you. And I think the only other thing I would say there is really what helped me in my experience, and I was very fortunate here that my second journey, my first was, and this comes out of failure for me. I went into my first big leadership role and failed tremendously because I went in that way. I have to prove myself. I have to make this thing happen. I have to forget everybody else. Or if they come along, cool. If not, I'll just work extra hours. I'll do the hard work that no one's willing to do to get it done. And I didn't have a team of people to help me execute it. And then realizing how much of a failure that was, moving into my second career opportunity and started to be developed as a leader, the earliest advice I remember getting was, look early for your replacement. Find someone, not necessarily because you want to move on to the next thing, but replace yourself, which enabled me to have the constant focus of caring for the next people, caring for my team, looking for strengths, finding talent, in developing that through. And so a book that I would recommend there would be Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. Such a great book. I read it really early into that part or section or season of life, and it really helped frame not only how to create a cohesive team, but also how to multiply leadership within a team. And so it's not all on you. So
very cool. All right. Next up, I'm really just interested to see where this goes.
Oh,
and then we have one more after this that we'll land the plane with.
So encouraged.
But this comes from a 22-year-old college student currently working on their thesis. So a little different. But the title is, I'm naturally good at leading, but I hate being a leader. Advice? So they say, how do I learn to like or at least be neutral about a leadership role? I'm currently working on my thesis with a group, and by necessity, I've had to take the lead. My group mates are not the most competent, effective, or socially interesting to make me motivated. Due to other circumstances, I can't drop my thesis or switch groups.
What's this person's
Hold on,
what's her name?
I just need to just laugh at that, because
It's absolutely brutal.
I mean, I feel bad if I see that and I'm their team and I'm on his team. I'm like, man, screw this guy. Like that's so screwed up. He's posting that on Reddit.
What's his handle?
Void Snack.
Yeah, Void Snack. I will be shocked if this guy's self-assessment of him being a great leader is accurate. Okay, let's start. With the self. So
they say there's a bit more context.
I don't know if I want it. I don't know if I want
it. Clears it up.
Mm-hmm.
So they say they're a 22-year-old guy. I've had multiple roles in student organizations.
Wait, he's 21. He was 21 a little while ago.
No, I said 22.
Oh, okay. All right, keep going. Sorry.
They participated in internships. Also says that he's diagnosed with ADHD and likely on the spectrum. It says, I've been scouted by friends to serve as business developer for their startups. However, I don't particularly enjoy being a leader. What I do enjoy is working efficiently and solving problems, primarily social or workplace related. It just so happens that leadership roles often involve these tasks, which has led me to being viewed as a natural leader. I've also been told that I am naturally charismatic, but that isn't a role I seek out. Leadership to me feels more like a burden than a position of fulfillment. What makes the situation particularly stressful is that while I'm capable of compartmentalizing my thesis work as strictly business, my group's inefficiencies force me to take on the majority of the workload. This adds an extra layer of strain in an already demanding task. How can I reframe this mindset to handle leadership roles with less resistance or stress?
Well, let's. It's kind of a fundamental conversation about what is a leader. I guess that needs to start. So, my view on leadership is the word in general connects to influence, how we influence others.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what it sounds like he's connecting, I think it's a he there, is connecting
22-year-old guy.
Leadership to getting things done. And maybe being the smartest guy in the room, that's potentially there as well. And so he's being naturally led to, hey, we need you to provide the answer. We need you to get this done. You're the smartest guy here. You're all these type of things. That is not leadership. That is a highly skilled participant in what's going on. But that doesn't mean that what he necessarily is influencing the group to get there. So he's got a group and he's already determined they're incompetent. They can't pull forward. They can't. A great leader takes that incompetent group, if that were true, and inspires them to do the best work they've ever done in their life and really share the burden and put it out there. What he's saying is, because that would be influencing the people around to accomplish the common goal. What he's saying is they're too stupid. I'm taking it all on myself and I'm going to go do this
because I can and I'm smarter.
Right. So that's not being the leader. That is, and if the group's smart and this guy's super smart and he can do it all by himself and he thinks he's the deal, you feed his ego. Oh my God, you're such a great leader. We have to depend on you. Then he does all the work.
Stand in the way. Yeah. They're going to bowling on Tuesday night.
But if that's what's happening, the group has great leaders in it that are leading it to inspire the group to not have to do the work and get the best outcome possible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The guy's being manipulated potentially into feeding his ego, do it. And it, going back, you use ADHD and on the spectrum. And I've had a few people that I've worked with. I don't know if they fit exactly this person, but it's like they're brilliant. I mean, the way their brains work and the way but they're very focused. And a lot of times he says he's interested in the social side, but a lot of times don't get the social dynamics of what's taking place because they're so analytically brilliant and they get focused there. And then the outcome is they think they're good at everything. So therefore they assume that they're good at the people side and they're missing all the nuance and all the things that really come with leadership.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't want to bag on this person, but I'm like, young, brilliant, most likely, but arrogant, egotistical. If I'm on this guy's team, I am making him feel like $1 million and I'm getting him to do all the work. And that sounds like what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, my advice for this guy is be honest.
That's interesting advice. What do you think comes out of that? Let's talk through that.
Like, he said, I don't want to be the leader, but people keep putting me in positions of being a leader. Like, no one puts you in a position of being a leader. You put yourself there, or you say yes to. Like, stop being codependent and just say no. Like, just say, no, I'm not going to do that. Make boundary lines. That's okay. If you don't want to be a leader, no one's asking you to be, or no one's telling you you have to be. If you feel like you have to be, voice that too, and let someone else either rise up or let it be what it is. I mean, you don't, I've heard this before, and I think you just hit a trigger point in me that I didn't realize was there. But as you were reading that, it was like, I've had people say that to me before, like when they failed as a leader, they failed in their role, or they didn't feel like they were doing well. They came to me and they're like, you put me in this role. I didn't put you in the role. You said yes. You signed up for it. You took the pay raise. You said you were willing to do it. I didn't put you there.
And then when it goes sideways, then
it's everyone else's fault.
But what you guys are talking about to me is an overall lack of awareness.
Yeah.
It's different. You gotta have this. So you take and in this case, there is, what does it mean to be a leader? And when I am a leader, how do I exhibit that and work through it? And he doesn't want to be in a leadership role because my assumption is he's not actually a leader. Let me change that. We all influence each other. We're all leaders in one way or another. He's not wanting the mantle of being responsible for driving this group of people to better performance because he doesn't know how to do it, but he does know how to produce an outcome.
Which, to be fair, like in a corporate setting that is not a like college small group doing a project, like there are roles like that are not leadership roles, where you come in and you just execute and you become an expert in whatever field. Like I think to the 6 types of working genius.
Which, come on.
And like he is assuming that a leader contains all 6 things, where I have to be this, I have to be this, I have to be this. But it sounds like they are just good at coming up with solutions and also galvanizing people, which people who are good galvanizers don't maybe not make for the best leaders, but there can be a role that is built for a person who's a galvanizer, where you like, I'm holding people accountable, but I'm not necessarily like leading them. I am, checks and balances, like, which that would be a little bit more of a nuanced position, but there are positions out there like that.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, Connor, where it's like, it takes a whole team to lead a team. Like, yes, you have a leader, but within that world, you also have someone who, if the leader isn't a galvanizer, then you're going to delegate that out to someone who naturally is, that rallies the troops, that communicates effectively, that's doing all those things. It doesn't have to be the leader, but you need people to follow you in order to create that within the team and be able to delegate that and have the confidence to do it as well. And and I think, not just talking about that guy, I think that's where a lot of leaders fall short, is they feel they need to fill all those 6 working geniuses instead of leaning into theirs and then equipping and tooling people around them in order to do the others.
Yeah, this makes me think of, there was we worked with a very large hospital group, and they had hundreds of thousands of employees, and we got to work specifically with their IT department. And lots of really smart people in there, a lot of computer engineers, computer programmers, all these different groups of people in there. And they worked in teams. And so they had this group of, I don't know if they were engineers, I don't know their actual title, but they were very brilliant individual contributors. And what the problem was other teams that when they'd have a project and they come in and they'd have all these different groups have to work together, this team would come in and they go, we don't want to work with anybody because they're all too stupid to work with. And all the other teams were like, you're a bunch of assholes. We don't want to work with you,? And so they had this conflict that was taking place cross departmentally. And that what they'd done is they put a brand new manager, younger than all the people in this engineering group, to pioneer leading the cross departmental function. And this new manager, I don't know how old, but let's go with like 25, 26, managing a bunch of brilliant engineers that are really good at what they do, that are like in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And now their job is to get all these people and their brilliance to communicate well with everybody else. And it just feels a lot like, and virtually impossible. And interesting enough, what's that?
It's a big uphill battle for that.
But going back, and this even connects to the earlier one, the way he went about it is he went in and instead of dictating anything, asked a lot of questions, asked a lot about pain points, what's going on, and then took on the verbal side of it, started communicating for them. And it said it didn't change. They were still sitting around going, all these people are idiots. We don't want to work with them. Okay. But everybody else was willing to work with them because you took away the asshole part. You got somebody in between that could be their mouthpiece. I don't know how that helps this 22-year-old dude, but I'm just saying the reality is if I'm on it, I'd still go back to it. If I'm in this guy's group and we're in college, I am absolutely playing to his ego. I'm telling him how awesome he is, how brilliant he is. I'm doing all that. And I won't have to do any of the work.
I need help again.
Gosh, you are so smart. Could you put in the 6 hours on that versus me? Because obviously it's going to be better.
I'll do it, but it's going to be wrong. And you'll probably have to redo it later anyway. So
I will say though, to that point, and I think where do you take away, like for listeners that are listening to this as leaders, no matter where you are in your position, I would say desire is really important, and it's an underappreciated value of leaders. If you don't want to be a leader and you don't desire to be a leader or have a drive for leadership, that is an issue. And I think that's something to really ponder. Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah. And I forgot that's where I kind of wanted to go into that with this question was like when leaders fall into the pitfall of I have this really charismatic person on my team, socially, that means they're going to be the next leader, but they may not want it. They may not have the skills for it. Specifically, I guess they don't want it. How would you handle those situations where like this person's a natural born leader? They're awesome and blah, blah, blah. They're smart, but they don't want it. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I would say, why don't they want it? I mean, I would say, really.
Wait, I want to hear what Eric's first off was because he had a very strong first off.
No, right where Austin's going. No, okay. No. I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear where Austin goes.
Okay. I was like, no, because
ask why they don't want it.
Well, fundamental belief that I have here is that you attract what you deserve. And if people don't want to be in leadership, it's most likely because you're exhibiting an example of leadership that they don't want to aspire to be. And so if you are, there was actually a season in my leadership journey where we had, oh my God, I think over 70% of our team were considered leaders within the business because they went through leadership progression and they desired to be in leadership roles. It was fantastic, but I've also been in other businesses or seen other businesses that no one wants to be in leadership. And it begs the question, what are you exhibiting? What are you showing? Well, I don't want to be in leadership because they always work late. They never get all their performance reviews are zeros. They get a lot of crap. Everything gets thrown on them. They always have to take the blame for everything. They're not treated fairly. They're not treated appropriately. If that's your culture, no one wants to be a leader in it. And that's understandable. And so if no one wants to be a leader, or there's just a lack of desire and leadership for your company, look in the mirror, especially internally. If people aren't seeking growth opportunities within your company, that's where you look in the mirror and you go, man, what am I attracting? Because what I'm attracting, I deserve. And if I'm not attracting people to desired leadership, then my leadership doesn't deserve that. And that's a hard look, but I think it's real.
So I thought he was going to go in a different place. I like that answer. Right? For me, it is, so they go, I don't want to be in leadership. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, what do you want? And what do they want? I just want to sit here, do my job, and have nothing. That may fit your culture. In a lot of cultures, it doesn't fit, because that leads to just kind of the stagnant, flat line. It doesn't have the right vibe or feel for the culture. But let's say it does. That's fine. Yeah. But actually, what a lot of people answer to that, if you go, what do you want? They're going to, well, I want to grow. I want to advance with the company. I want to get better. I want all these things. And they want what leadership offers. But there's a reason that they don't want to be there. And it may be what Austin's talking about. They may have bad examples, may have bad role models. They may have all these things. It may be that inwardly they're just insecure about stepping into it. I don't know. So asking the questions does matter. But I would say, if someone says, I don't want to be in leadership, but they have all the skills and abilities, then don't put them in leadership. Yeah. I mean, it's that simple. That's probably the face you saw, because that was my initial thought. Because I'm just like, yeah, don't do it.
But
maybe they will grow into it. But
I've seen people shove people into that a round hole and put in the square peg. Where it's like it doesn't, just because they have that innate ability, there has to be that innate desire to execute to that level.
Yeah.
And that's a two-way street too. That's a two-way street. At the same time, the person on the other side has to say, hey, I'm not going to take this that you're shoving to me. At the same time, the company has to go, I'm not going to give you something that you don't absolutely want and desire. Or if there is a hesitation, be honest about that hesitation, which is difficult and vulnerable and takes effort, but it's what's needed to get through it.
Well, I have another one, but we're going to save it for next time. So make sure you tune in. I like the next question a lot. It's how do you get your employees to become more independent? So, but we'll hit it next time.
You beat the employees. You beat the employees. It works every time.
Spare the rod, spoil the employee.
Yeah. It's typically not a valid approach in California, but everywhere else you're clean.
Really?
Just go for it.
Yeah. And New York.
And New York. At New York.
Hell of a note to end on. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you have any stories or questions of your own, you can submit them, if you still want to at this point after that last answer. podcast@drivenleadership.com. And Austin, Eric, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week, everybody.
You guys are the best.